It is 6 a.m. on a Monday morning. Justin Myers with you. The Portland Trail Blazers fell to the Oklahoma City Thunder 134-91 at Moda Center last night. The Blazers' losing streak continues, but there could be some optimism on the injury front as Scoot Henderson and Malcolm Brogdon could potentially return this week. The Denver Broncos edged the Minnesota Vikings 21-20 for their fourth, count them, 4 in a row. Oregon cruises past Arizona State 49-13, while the Beavers fall to Washington in a heartbreaker, 22-20 in an absolute monsoon at Reser Stadium. Coming up, friend of the program, Aaron Fentress from the Oregonian joins the show in hour number 3, but it is a college football Monday on a short Thanksgiving week. We waste no time. It is hour 1 of RCM, and it starts right now on 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's time for Justin Myers to wake you up here on Rip City Mornings, 620 Rip City Radio.
And a very happy Monday. It is RCM. I am your host, Justin Myers. Super producer Brendan is safely partitioned on the other side of the glass. Thanks for getting up early with us or staying up late. However you are rolling on this particular Monday. Also, however you are consuming our product, we appreciate it, whether you listen to us on the AM radio or if you are watching us live on YouTube, as we are streaming on the tubes that are you. Go to the Rip City Radio YouTube page, subscribe to it, and each and every time we are live, you get a little thing that says, hey, they're live right now, and you can see behind the scenes, or if you want to listen via the app. However you are listening to the program, we appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out. A lot of stuff to dive into on the big show. And, there's a lot of times I talk about the secret sauce to college football, right? Yes, I'm going to give this speech one more time because I feel like it is apropos today. There is a secret sauce to college football that makes it different than the NFL. Because no other sport has figured it out. College basketball, other than for 1 month out of the year because of the format of March Madness, but college basketball will never be more popular and will never be bigger than the NBA. They get a month out of the year where we start paying attention, and really it's 3 weeks. It's 3 weeks. We pay attention in March. Some of us will start paying attention around, championship week, but for the most part, college basketball, it's 3 weeks. It's that opening weekend. It's brackets in the Sweet 16. And then if some of us are alive with our brackets, we may pay attention to the Final Four, but it's 3 weeks. That's it. 52 weeks of the year, college basketball gets 3. It's never going to be more popular than the NBA. Clearly, there is no baseball product that is more popular than Major League Baseball. Clearly, there is no golf product. Liv tried it. Like, hey, how about if we play music and steal a bunch of guys, and they're in teams now. They're the aces, and they're the hot shots, or what, I don't know what they're called. Anyways, and golf people are like, yeah, we just want to watch the Masters, all right? And we want to watch the U.S. Open, and we want to watch PGA guys. Your team thing was... So Liv Golf, never going to be as popular as PGA. Never going to happen. So how on earth did we get a system? How on earth did we get a format in college football that makes it to where tens and sometimes hundreds of thousands of people will flock to a stadium that is in a downpour to watch game? Why? It's the secret sauce. Now, the secret sauce is the fact that it all comes down to certain games and certain plays. Yeah, the NFL this weekend was electric. Seahawks went down, last-second field goal, missed it. Poor Jason Myers. Feel bad for that guy because he's one of the family. Not related to him at all, but, still feel like he's part of the family. Missed field goal. But is the entire season on the line for the Seahawks? No. They're 6-4. They'll find a way to get into the wild card. They'll find a way to maybe potentially get into the postseason. My Pittsburgh Steelers lost on a last-second field goal. Now, the Steelers have bigger fish to fry because can't beat Dorian Thompson-Robinson in a regular season game when you are as healthy as you've ever been. But kick the field goal, Steelers lose. We're still 6-3. Still in the hunt. No, season ended right now. It'll be a wild card team. 14 teams are going to make the postseason. And we like that on Sundays. So how on earth did college football get to a point where the product is not as good as the NFL? It's not. The NFL is a superior product. The broadcasts are not as good as the NFL. The NFL's got it dialed in. And they got 75 cameras everywhere. A lot of times we're squinting like, oh, boy. I don't know. It might be the first down. But how did they? I'll tell you why. Because it comes down to moments. Everything for Oregon State and for Washington, for that matter, was on the line at Reser Stadium on Saturday. Oregon State took the loss. Championship aspirations done. Their only role now is to play spoiler, which is a role that they are quite familiar with and quite comfortable with. Going into Autzen Stadium and potentially ruining Oregon's season. Still a pretty good trophy. You don't get an official one, but all the championship aspirations that we talked about from June, July, August, it comes down one play. Fourth down. If your tight end stops and doesn't continue to run the route, you don't get a wild card. And that tension that I'm sure everybody was feeling in Reser Stadium on Saturday, and Brendan was there, and he could probably speak to it more than I could, but that tension of here it is, it's fourth down, everything is on the line, everything. There is no, oh, well, that one stinks, let's shake hands, maybe we'll see him in the playoffs. That doesn't exist. The regular season has elevated the stakes, even though, yes, there are some teams that may get a second chance. There are some teams that will take a loss and could still win the national title. All of that, I get it. But there is no, 7-4, 8-4, somewhere around there. Then we'll get into the wild card. We'll give it a shot. No, that doesn't exist. Everything comes down to one play. It's third down. Washington makes a back shoulder throw. They gamble. They could have ran the ball. Could have ran the clock down to what? About 1:20. They gamble. They get the first down. They get to take the knee. Their playoff lives, well, that heartbeat keeps ticking. But it came right down to the wire. That's the secret sauce of college football. It's also the tragic part of college football. Because when it's over, sadly, it's kind of over. But that's where we sit right now as there's a game on Friday at Autzen Stadium, Oregon State, trying to play spoiler, trying to ruin Oregon's season. And after everything that has happened over the past calendar year, I would imagine, yes, would a trip to the Pac-12 championship probably be much more coveted by the Beaver believers? Yeah, but still a chance to ruin your arch rivals' day on the way out, potentially for the last time, which we're going to talk about that coming up in a bit. Brendan, you were there. You told me, you said, listen, Justin, I don't know if TV did it justice. And you know what? I am inclined to agree with you because I'm watching that game and I'm seeing that downpour and I'm like, that looks bad. But I lived in Oregon rain. Brendan, you grew up in Oregon rain. It is more often than not annoying at best and sometimes manageable. That looked like a different level.
Yeah, it was wet.
Like a completely different level.
Yeah, I can't even speak. It was easily the wettest I've ever seen at Reser Stadium, and I've seen a lot of games. I've seen a lot of weather.
Yeah,
and
that was nuts.
When you, maybe not the windiest, maybe not, like the total, maelstrom, but when you consider just how much rain, pure liquid precipitation, Justin, I don't think it's been beat. So, yeah, no, shout out to everyone who took it like a champ.
Yeah. Stuck around after the halftime? That was nuts. So we're going to dive into a ton of the Pac-12. Did Chip Kelly save his job on Saturday? I've got a way far away, but let's keep an eye on something with regard to another coach down in Southern California, because I think, have we ever seen in a game one sideline to the other the temperature shift? Right? You go into
In the NFL.
in the NFL, sure.
Yes.
Could you imagine in college football, like Chip Kelly goes in, he's on the hot seat. Lincoln Riley, not the best season, but whatever. It's year 2. The temperature from one sideline to the other, boy,
What does
massive.
that say, though, Justin, that when – because everyone saw it this week. We talked about it this week. What does it say that maybe that they couldn't have been more wrong? Like, because, you've seen this. A report like that will come out. A team will play terrible because they're like, we don't care.
Uh-huh.
They clearly care about
They rallied around their coach.
saving Chip.
100%.
I'd say that's not nothing to me.
100%. Here's another thing I'll say about this. You know this, Brendan, because you know enough behind the scenes, the same as I do. There are far too many cooks in the kitchen in terms of college football. There are too many. Now, ultimately, right, it comes down to a decision by the athletic director, right? That's who can actually hire and fire coaches. Now, athletic directors do. They're the ones. But there is also a lot of cooks in that kitchen. A lot of, a lot of fingers in that pie, so to speak, of people who are like, and I'm not doubting that whoever the reporter is down there in LA, I think he was 24/7 reporter, is the one that first got it. And then, of course, everybody hopped on it because we live in a consumption world where it just kind of keeps snowballing and snowballing. But I have no doubt there's probably some booster at UCLA going like, $35 million, what we paid Chip, and we're not even sniffing anywhere close to the Pac-12, and we're going into the Big Ten. They don't have a recruiting advantage, all that. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if some booster told some reporter, and that reporter decided this is a credible enough story. But there's so many cooks in the kitchen, but like you said, Brendan, they rally behind their coach, right? They're like, hey, coach is on the hot seat. We got a rivalry game. Not on our watch. They went into the Coliseum and hammered it. Now,
I just love that
hot seat shifts.
Yeah, I just love that they wanted it more than USC. I mean, Justin, I've made no qualms about how I feel about the University of Spoiled Children this year, but
Especially one particular quarterback.
yes.
And
Yes. So I was happy to see. Good for Chip. That's my takeaway from that.
And also, I don't want to be like old grandpa on a soapbox going like these kids don't understand. But we're still in the adjustment period of when we are paying players the pressure that comes with said paycheck, right? It was so easy. It was so easy 2 years ago, right? Pay the guys, pay the players. No, nothing bad could come with millions of dollars. Oh, wait, except for massive expectations, massive amounts of media attention on 19 and 20-year-old kids. And look, Caleb Williams took the paycheck, and he got the NIL deal, and he's on the Dr. Pepper commercials and all that stuff. And is he in Wendy's? Yeah, he's in the Wendy's commercial. He's in all of it. Guess what that brings? Pressure to win. And when you don't, I don't believe it is a good look when you decide I'm not going to meet with the media. It's like, yeah, you're the quarterback who gets paid over $1 million. You're a student athlete and you want to stay in the locker room and don't want to talk to us doofuses. I completely get it. Completely get it. But you're an employee now. You get paid. You're a professional. You want to take the paycheck but not take any of the good stuff that comes with it. And I do find it fascinating. There were 2 teams in this conference that we talked about, NIL. 2 teams. One of those teams is not going to a bowl, and the other one of those teams, 7-5. USC and Colorado. No, how much did we talk about transfers and NIL? Transfers and NIL, transfers and NIL. Those are the 2 most. Arguably the 2 most disappointing teams in the conference this year. After what Colorado started off with and what USC started off with, maybe the two most disappointing endings in the conference when all you talk about is transfer and NIL. Because maybe, again, secret sauce, there might be a little bit more to succeeding in this whole college football world. But we'll take a look at the Pac-12. We are set up for one final run coming up this weekend, but whole lot of storylines going on as well. Apple Cup's going to continue. Will the Civil War follow suit? I know one nay vote in my universe, which we will dive into that discussion as well. But a whole lot of football stuff to talk. Look, the Blazers are maybe the worst team in the NBA. When the Blazers get serious about winning, we will get serious about talking about them. But that was bad last night. It was bad.
That's kind.
No, thank you. Well, there's certain words I can't say on the air.
Oh, I know. That's what
You
I
can
said.
say them on
It's
ESPN,
bad.
apparently. You can say them on ESPN now, but I still can't say them on my microphone, which is fine. That's cool. But DeAndre Ayton, opening tip, dunk, gives the let's go. 11 straight. Boom, 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 boom. Like, oh, gonna be one of those nights. Got it. More football talk next. 620 Rip City Radio. We're about 6 teams in the Pac-12 that had a chance to win the conference. At the beginning of the year, Oregon, Washington, USC, Oregon State, Utah, and I think we threw UCLA in there. It's like any of those 6 teams could potentially win the conference. Well, we are now down to 3. One of those 3 was not in that original 6. That is the Arizona Wildcats, who have been on an absolute roll. They lost back-to-back games. Arizona did. 7-point loss. 7-point loss to Washington. And then a triple overtime 2-point loss to USC at the Coliseum. When USC, by the way, still had life. Since then, and at that point made Arizona 3-3. It's like, Jed Fish the guy, right? Well, since then, at 3-3, 44-6, they beat Washington State. Oregon State fans know the score from that game against Oregon State and they know exactly by how much they won by. They beat UCLA 27-10. They beat Colorado by 3. And they put a 42-18 whooping on Utah this weekend. And they've rattled off 5 straight. And Arizona, going into the final weekend, still has life to potentially get into the Pac-12 championship. Because if Oregon loses to Oregon State on Friday and Arizona beats Arizona State, it comes down to the 4th tiebreaker. That 4th tiebreaker being common conference opponent ranked the highest since they both lost to Washington. Oregon and Arizona both beat Utah. It would come down to Oregon State. There's your tiebreaker. So Arizona still has life. Still has life in the Pac-12 title. But after a full 11 weeks into the season, the Pac-12 is now down to essentially 3 teams. And really, you got the 2 teams in Oregon and Washington after a full weekend as USC eliminated itself. Oregon State took the tough loss at Reser Stadium. And now we're down to the final weekend. And what a season it has become. Full of storylines. Let's start with this Oregon game. 49-13. And again, because I am a paranoid Oregon fan, I was like, all right, things are going too well. Right? Things are going too well for Oregon because since that loss to Washington, that heartbreaking loss to Washington, Oregon has not been in a competitive game. A little bit competitive against Washington State that next week, but that's 38-24. They won that one, and that was an excuse me touchdown to cover the spread, backdoor cover for Washington State. That game wasn't close. 35-6, Utah never got into the end zone. 63-19, Cal never had a chance. 36-27 was the closest game, and that was against USC. And if you watched how that game went along, USC never had a chance to tie or take the lead. They never had the football in their hands in the 4th quarter with a chance to tie or take the lead. And then they go down to Arizona State and put a hurting on the Sun Devils. Record day for Bo Nix. Bo Nix was 24 of 29 for 404 yards, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions, and in a fond farewell, things I'm not going to miss about the Pac-12. Fond farewell. Pac-12 officiating cost Bo Nix a chance at the single-game Oregon record. He is now tied with legends like Marcus Mariota and Justin Herbert, but Bo Nix threw a touchdown to Terrence Ferguson, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, in a non-competitive game where Bo Nix is essentially just trying to break the record, offensive pass interference. Hey, you know what? Pac-12 refs going to go down to the bitter end, aren't they? To the bitter end, Pac-12 refs they're not going down without a fight. But in a game against a conference opponent on the road, not a cupcake game like Jaden Daniels was playing this weekend, but in a conference game on the road, and I understand that Arizona State's not good. I understand they are 3-8 on the season. They also have a self-imposed bowl ban, and they are rebuilding with Kenny Dillingham. Now, Brendan, I know you were probably on the road. I don't know how much of this game you got to watch. Maybe it's just Arizona State's like, they're like, look, we are trying to build with scraps. That was one of the worst offensive game plans I've ever seen a coach have. For a guy like Kenny Dillingham, who put together such an unbelievable offense for Oregon last year, to essentially have tight ends and running backs playing wildcat. Now, they might just be out of dudes, right? I know the injury bug has hit them as well. They might just be out of dudes. I have no idea what that philosophy was going up against Oregon on Saturday. Now, I have watched a lot of Arizona State football this year. And I know that Scadaboo has kind of been a guy they've been using, but I had no earthly idea what they were trying to do against Oregon on Saturday. Did you get any of that game, or were you locked? You were locked in.
Yeah, we were out on the drive, so
right.
No, can't say I watched any of that Oregon game. But ESPN made sure to tell me that Bo Nix broke the Oregon record or tied it or whatever.
He tied the Oregon record, yeah.
So
and then had the record. Guy had the football in his hands in the end zone. Offensive pass interference. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Pac-12 officials.
I mean, I wish I could say I was surprised, but I wasn't. This is exactly what I expected Oregon to do to a terrible Arizona State team.
Yeah, it was. So it was 42-0 at half. Bo Nix goes out, tries to break the record. They cost him the record with a terrible pass interference call, and they're now in cruise control. And here we are. I believe that on Friday, even though I do not like that this game is played on a short week. I do not like that Oregon and Oregon State decided to play this game on a Friday, but that's neither here nor there. I've been complaining about that for 2 years now. But on Friday, Thanksgiving, a lot of people are going to be watching it. Bo Nix has a day against Oregon State. He might win the Heisman right then and there. Now, I'm pretty sure the only competition that he's got is Jaden Daniels there at LSU. They're playing Texas A&M. Does Texas A&M show up, like play free without Jimbo? And they're like, hey, coach got fired. We can play free and clear. No, or are they like, look, we're all transferring tomorrow, okay? Let's just end this season. This season has been miserable. We're not going to a bowl game. We're going to get a new coach. New coach is probably going to come in like Deion Sanders, cut all of our rear ends. Let's just find a way to get the clock to triple zeros. I'm going to be fascinated to see what Texas A&M does in that scenario. But Bo Nix has an opportunity. Also, Michael Penix has got an opportunity as well with the Apple Cup,
and then
to set it up for the Pac-12 championship game. Yeah.
Because do you think it could come down to ultimately that game, Justin?
Here's where I'm interested. I've never been a Heisman voter. I don't think you're not a Heisman voter, are you? You've been a secret Heisman ballot this whole time? No. The ballots, I don't believe, are due until after Saturday night after the championship games are played, right? In 2 weeks. But I would imagine a lot of people, because you can send them in, I believe, whenever you want. And so I believe a lot of people might cast their ballots or make their decision after the game on Friday or after the weekend, over the weekend. And I think Bo Nix could secure it before that Pac-12 title game, unless he plays well, Penix plays well, and Jaden Daniels maybe has a terrible, terrible game. And the voters are just like, all right, let's Friday night in Vegas. Hopefully they get all that F1 stuff cleaned up, by the way. You've seen that fire festival that they put on at F1. Now, I don't know. Algorithms are weird, but my algorithm was pretty much like, yeah, Vegas was an absolute you-know-what show.
Don't ruin Vegas.
Sounds like they kind of did.
Yeah, no, it does.
It kind of did. Like, hey, you know those walkways? Yeah, can't stand on them. Okay, but there's race cars coming. Yeah, moving along. What a fire fest. So it'll be fascinating to see if the voters come in. But a lot of opportunity for Bo Nix, as he is the clear Heisman frontrunner. But you're starting to see that East Coast pushback. Here it comes, the East Coast pushback. Other interesting games of note. We talked about it earlier. UCLA took care of USC 38-20. It wasn't particularly close. And while Caleb Williams did make a couple of nice throws, one TD, one interception, he threw for over 300 yards. I got the sense that Caleb Williams was ready to be done. Like, yep, I'm ready to be done. Does the Alamo Bowl have the guts? Brendan, does the Alamo Bowl have the guts to put USC versus, if Texas beats Oklahoma in the Big 12 title game, does the Alamo Bowl have the guts to put USC versus Oklahoma in their bowl game?
No.
You don't think so?
Alamo Bowl was at Jonathan Smith's post-game press conference.
Okay.
So, no, I don't think so.
You think it's going to be Beavs versus maybe potentially Oklahoma?
I think it's very simple for Oregon State now. They somehow beat Oregon. They go to the Alamo Bowl. They somehow lose. Well, not somehow. They lose to Oregon. They go to the Holiday Bowl. That's it. USC probably going to go to the Sun Bowl, Justin, which would be just terrific. Or Utah.
By the way, there is a history of like USC going to the Sun Bowl and being completely miserable.
Oh, yeah.
Because
totally.
that's, for a team like USC and a fan base like USC, the Sun Bowl is the absolute worst place for them. Well, they would much rather be 4-8, fire our coach, rebuild, than be 7-5, Sun Bowl, El Paso, and trying to pretend to compete with a bunch of backups because everybody else is going to opt out, like Florida did, and like all these big name schools are just like, meh, I don't want to show up, and then you're going to get your doors blown off. I still think there's a chance that the Alamo Bowl goes like, hey, we could put Oklahoma and USC against each other, and we could try to make some ratings. But let me throw out this scenario. I don't like being in the business of calling for people's jobs. I don't like doing it. I don't like it when people call for my job, right? Now, it's a little bit different with college football coaches because once you get fired, you get a payout and you get a lot of money, whereas if you are fired in radio, they say, yeah, let me walk you to your desk. Give me your key card. You have 15 minutes to collect your things before I walk you to the elevator. True story actually happened to me in this city. Walked me to the elevator. Like, where am I going to go? Anywho, so it's a little different, but I don't like calling for people's jobs. But it is a reality in this sport. Brendan, USC is 7-5. USC potentially going to the Sun Bowl. Don't know who they would face, but probably not going to have Caleb Williams as their quarterback. USC's schedule next year. Do you know who they open up with next year? It's fascinating. I didn't know this until I looked it up yesterday. They open up with LSU in Vegas.
Wow.
Then they play Cupcake. Then they get a bye. Then they play Michigan. 7-5 this year. No Caleb Williams. Seats warming up for Lincoln Riley. Brendan, what if they start 1-2 next year with a loss to LSU and Michigan? What if they start off 1-2? Boy, oh boy, it could get real weird down in LA. I'm not saying they're going to fire Lincoln Riley in year 3. That's kind of kooky talk, but he was brought in to win championships. He was brought in to get to the college football playoff. And, 7-5.
Well, and again, Justin, I think I mentioned it a couple weeks ago. Like, this is new territory to him. As a head coach, he had never lost more than 3 games in a year.
I know. It's
and
nuts.
Even in Oklahoma, never lost more than 2. So, Pac-12 or whatever, not quite as easy as the Big 12, eh, Lincoln?
I know. Isn't that a little bit weird, huh? I mean, you just only have to focus on Texas and that one game in the middle of the season. But I was looking at that. I'm like, could you imagine? Because obviously USC, they're going to get a little restless. Like, Caleb Williams is gone. He is gone. I don't care what Caleb Williams said about, I might come back to USC. No. He is gone. And so now you're going to have a new quarterback. You're going to have a new defensive coordinator. You're going to have to work the transfer portal. You're going to have to figure it all. And you're going into the Big Ten next year. And you're opening up with LSU in Vegas. Neutral site, which will be a fantastic game, by the way. You lose that game, then 3 weeks later after a bye, you go up against Michigan, who it sounds like Harbaugh might be in a little bit more trouble than just
next
this
year.
Latest suspension. Sounds like next year, he might not even be able to coach next year. He's going to be the coach of the Bears. I mean.
The winning Bears, you mean?
I guess you're right.
Right? They won, right? They won yesterday, right?
No, they lost to the Lions.
Okay, that's
but
right. They
were
collapsed. Sorry,
They were
I
winning,
apologize.
collapsed. Yeah,
They collapsed. They should have won. Absolutely should have won. But
I think he's going to be the head coach of the Bears. Personally,
over the Raiders?
He might be the head coach of the Chargers.
Over the Raiders? Raiders are still coachless, Justin.
The Raiders are coached. The Chargers about to be coachless.
Hey, Brandon Staley said he's got complete confidence, Justin. So why should we be worried?
I know. And normally we do our Tuesday NFL stuff,
I know,
but with Herbert, like the fact that Justin Herbert was screaming obscenities at his offensive lineman yesterday, which is something that Justin Herbert does not do. He does not do that. Like, tensions are high in SoFi, if you know what I mean. And no, not the Rams side, but the Chargers side. You know, I think Brandon Staley might be out of a job coming up soon. And again, I know I just started this by saying I don't like calling for people's jobs, but
here's the thing, though,
Jim,
Justin.
and again, I always forget that they're not San Diego anymore. Jim Harbaugh does have history with the Chargers. You know what I mean?
It's true.
He's got history with the Chargers, played for the Chargers.
Yeah.
Can
I say this, Justin? I don't feel bad calling for someone's job when you make millions and you're going to be just fine in the unemployment line. You call for someone, Justin, who's hanging our windows or, pouring concrete or, real like, hey, you lose this job. It's like, I'm sorry, Brandon Staley gets fired. Boo-hoo. He gets to go be a defensive coordinator somewhere. So that part of it I'll disagree because it's like none of these coaches are ever
a personal choice for me. I've never felt comfortable with it, but it's a reality of like you signed up, right? You there's some broken eggs with that nice fat omelet that is your paycheck, and those broken eggs are that doofuses like me in the morning go like, I don't know if he's going to keep his job much longer. All right, all that being said, speaking of jobs, somebody got poached Jed Fish out of Arizona. It's year 2, right? Year 2 in Arizona. Year 3. Oh, that's poaching season. I know we're talking about. We've been talking about Jonathan Smith, and like if you're Michigan State, hey Jed, what are you doing? You up? Because you just turned Arizona in 3 years from a doormat. They were terrible.
His first year, they go 1-11. He rebuilt Arizona faster than Jonathan Smith rebuilt Oregon State.
Wait, you can go from 1-11 and I thought Deion was the only guy that was able to do that. I thought he was the only guy ever in the history of college football because I keep hearing about they were 1-11 last year. I didn't realize there were other teams that went 1-11 and are now on the doorstep of a potential conference championship. Like that's actually a thing that has happened. Weird, because the X app tells me that Deion's the only guy that's ever taken over a 1-11 team and won more games than the year before. Silly me. What was I thinking? Oh, boy. All right, and we're going to talk some Washington, Oregon State a little bit later on in the program. I'm sure Brendan's got a make or miss on there that maybe he is stewing on. But other than that, Arizona's still alive. Cal hanging in there. Game against UCLA for a chance to go to a bowl game. Not a bad coaching job by Justin Wilcox this year. And yeah, keep paying attention to that hot seat in LA because it's not in Pasadena anymore. Chip Kelly might have brought the hot seat with him to the Coliseum, but he left with a victory bell and he left a hot seat for Lincoln Riley to sit on all winter long. All right, other thing happened in college football. Should the College Football Playoff Committee, not if, because they already said they would, but should the College Football Playoff Committee factor in injuries when making final decisions for the college football playoff? We'll talk about that next. 620 Rip City Radio. Does fruit belong in stuffing? No, it doesn't. I was watching a video, Brendan, of guys like, hey, perfect Thanksgiving stuffing. And I'm like, I am intrigued. I shall watch this video. And then he started cutting up apples. And I was like, out of my house, get gone. What's the best way to carve up a turkey? White meat or dark meat, right? All the Thanksgiving and the food arguments, but we gotta set parameters. Or like when you're talking about college football, right? Is Bo Nix now in the debate of greatest single season in Oregon football history? By the way, he is. But we got to set the parameters, right? What are we talking here? Are we talking stats? Are we talking wins? Are we talking moments? Or like, let's set the parameters. So I've said a ton of the frustration with the college football playoff committee is what are the parameters? What are we doing here? And it seems to be like whichever way the wind blows, we just kind of, maybe we'll pay attention to resume here. Maybe we'll pay attention to strength of schedule there. This team is eye test. That team is statistics. We just kind of make it up as we go along. And now there is a new wrinkle in the college football playoff discussion and debate which is in regards to injuries. Let us discuss as we go on campus. By the way, programming note, at some point, on campus is going to go away and Round Ball Rock is going to come back. Haven't decided when we want to do that yet.
Shout out that music, Justin.
Yeah, it's needed.
Bum, 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 bum.
Needs to come back. This music's still good.
Oh, it is. They're both great.
We need them. We need them both in our lives. But Round Ball Rock definitely going to come back because we got to talk about other basketball that's not the Blazers.
Does it stay through bowl season, Justin, or is it on the chopping block before bowl
again,
season?
like I said, parameters, as I was complaining about earlier, I'm just going to kind of go with my gut on that. We'll discuss as a show, and we'll figure it out, what's going to be the best way to move forward. But, so, sadly, and this is awful, Florida State quarterback in a cupcake game, in a tune-up game, was it South Alabama, I believe they were playing on Saturday? Probably going to be in there for about a handful of series and then get out and get ready for Florida. He broke his leg. It was ugly. It was a gross-looking injury. It's sadly part of the football world. Injuries can happen at any point in time. That's why it is important to live in the moment, right? Can't just look forward like, well, with this, and this. Why? Because crazy stuff can happen, and injuries can happen, and all of a sudden, everything changes. And everything changed for Florida State for a moment. Now, they did bounce back because they were playing South Alabama, and they got the win. But they have Florida this weekend in a rivalry game out of conference. Interesting. That's come up a bit the last 24, 48 hours. Rivalry games out of conference when they play them. We may talk about that later on in the program as well. But they got Florida, and then they got likely, I think, did Louisville clinch the ACC title game with their win this weekend? I think they did with their win over Miami. I believe it's going to be Louisville and Florida State in the ACC title game. Well, Jordan Travis is done for the year, clearly, because he broke his leg. And they're undefeated. They're the number 4 team in the country. And now here comes the debate and the discussion, which is, should the playoff committee factor in Jordan Travis's injury in right now, which is the discussion between Washington and Florida State. Now, I've been saying all along that I believe Washington is a better team than Florida State. Washington proved that. They went to Reser Stadium in a driving rainstorm and walked out victorious, and they are undefeated. They should be in the top 4, if not number 3 in the country. Now, all that being said, I do not believe that Florida State should be knocked or graded on a curve based upon their quarterback being out the rest of the year. It is a fact in sports that we struggle to overcome. But once you understand this concept, it makes things a whole lot clearer, in my opinion. Champion does not mean best. Champion means champion. Like, who is the Super Bowl champion and Super Bowl champion? Is that the best team in all of the NFL? No. There's no way to perfectly quantify the best team, but it's just the way we determine a champion. If Florida State goes through their entire schedule unscathed, and they are one of 3 undefeated teams left in college football, I don't care who their quarterback is. I don't care if their backup punter is playing quarterback. You should be in the college football playoff. They didn't make the ACC down this year. Florida State didn't go, hey, Clemson, you want to be mediocre this year? Thanks. No. Hey, Miami, you want to not be the U for a couple years and get real bad? Got it. Virginia Tech, never quite live up to the glory that you had about 15 years ago? Florida State didn't do that. Their schedule, by the way, they scheduled LSU and Florida non-conference.
Here's the deal, Justin.
I don't care if the quarterback's hurt.
Yeah, you're 100% right.
Thank you.
Here's the thing that'll take care of itself with Florida State. You really think that Louisville's not going to beat them without Jordan Travis? That's where
I don't know.
Yeah,
that's my point.
Yeah,
my point is that you're already hearing people saying well, should Florida State now be out of the conversation because their quarterback's hurt? And I'm like, how absurd is that?
They haven't lost a game. That's not fair.
That's what I'm saying.
By that logic, you should go, well, Washington beat Oregon State by 2 points. They should be out, right? You know what I mean? Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Well, in Washington, Washington is being docked because, they didn't look good against Arizona State and Stanford. That's the only, but they went into those games and came out a winner. Now, they beat Oregon State on the road, and they're going to probably face Oregon or Arizona. Either way, they're going to face a really good team in the Pac-12 title game. They win, they're going to get in. They go 13-0. Washington's not getting kept out. But people are losing their minds because they're like, oh, yeah, no, I don't think Florida State should be in the conversation because now without Jordan Travis, that doesn't matter. Trying to find the best team, that's a fool's errand. It is most deserved. And I know some people disagree with me. Don't care. I'll die on this hill. We're done with these arguments next year, which is a little nice, even though I don't like an expanded playoff. But I don't care if they had to go into the stands to find a guy. You walk out of a Power 5 conference unscathed with LSU and Florida on your non-conference? We've gotten silly. All right. We got the big three. We got Make or Miss. We got a Who on the Weekend. That's all next. 620 Rip City Radio.
And here's what you need to know. From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
It is 7 a.m. on a Monday morning. Justin Myers with you. The Portland Trailblazers fall to the Oklahoma City Thunder 134-91 at Moda Center. But hey, did you see Shaden Sharp's rebound? Tough night for the Blazers. I laughed through pain. The Denver Broncos have now won 4 NFL games in a row as Sean Payton fixed Russell Wilson because they take down the Minnesota Vikings 21-20 on Sunday Night Football. Oregon cruises past Arizona State 49-13. Bo Nix 6 touchdowns, tying the single-game record for Oregon quarterbacks. So they get the victory 49-13. They await the Oregon State Beavers, who are going to have to shake this one off because they fall to Washington 22-20. Heartbreaker at Reeser in an absolute downpour. Aaron Fentress from the Oregonian is going to be joining us in hour number 3. Are the Blazers the worst team in the NBA? And is that kind of what they're going for? But the big 3 in hour number 2 starts right now on 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's RCM with Justin Myers, right here on your home of the Portland Trailblazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
All right, 20 minutes from now, we have got Make or Miss. 40 minutes from now, it is Who Won the Weekend. Obviously, it was a barn burner down in Corvallis. Weather, play calling, turnovers. Seemed pretty electric though at the kickoff. Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit on the call were kind of talking about how not the biggest stadium, but when it gets going. Now, I have had these discussions and these debates with Oregon fans multiple times about loudest it's ever been, most raucous it's ever been. You were there, Brendan, at kickoff. Now I realize it was in a monsoon. And it's tough to clap in those ponchos. You know what I mean? Those ponchos make it a little bit tough to clap and to cheer and all of that. But was it, in terms of like all-time Reeser moments, is it up there? Was it it felt like it felt big on TV. Came off really well.
It felt big, but post it doesn't hold water with either one of the USC games.
Gotcha. Even at the beginning? Or is that just the full, like you're talking full 60 minutes?
The result is 100% dictated in this answer, and it was a stupendous atmosphere. But if you don't win, it's just another game.
It's interesting because I've always said 09 Civil War game, that pop at the beginning of that game was something I've never heard at Autzen Stadium before or since. And that's including some really big games. That, or like the whole I Love My Ducks thing was going on, which I'm sure you hated. But like that coming out of the tunnel Thursday night, it was what? I think it was a 6 o'clock kickoff. So it was like dark and it was Thursday night and just that place exploded and it was one for the ages. That was like in like wrestling, they call it like a pop when you come out of when the Hulkster used to come out to Real American. But there's also one. It's interesting because you mentioned it, Brendan, about how when you start talking about greatest atmospheres, you don't talk about the losses. I will go to my grave saying there is a moment in Autzen Stadium that was one of the top 5, maybe top 2 loudest moments in the history of Autzen Stadium, and nobody talks about it because they got their doors blown off. So you go back to 2003. 2003, Michigan Wolverines, then the number 5 team in the country, come to Autzen Stadium. Maybe the biggest game in Autzen Stadium non-conference-wise, right, other than a couple of USC and Washington teams that were number 1 in the country. But here comes the number 5 Michigan Wolverines in 2003. And Oregon pulls off the upset. Oregon pulls off the upset. They block a field goal for it was incredible. That was loud that day. The next week, Washington State comes to Autzen Stadium. Back-to-back. Here comes Washington State, conference opener. After the game, Lloyd Carr, who coaches in the Big Ten, made the quote, "That's the loudest stadium I've ever heard." Just kind of an offhand comment of, Coach, you seem to have some issues. He's like, yeah, we couldn't get the plays in. That's the loudest stadium I've ever heard. Kickoff before Washington.
And doesn't he play in a pretty big stadium?
It's known as the Big House. Now, it's not apparently loud there.
I've heard that
it's
too.
wide open, but Penn State, loud. Horseshoe, pretty loud. Michigan's played in some big games. Notre Dame, pretty loud. And he's like, that's the loudest stadium I've ever heard. So, Brendan, 2003, Oregon faces Washington State. Kickoff, it's packed. It's a beautiful day, by the way, at Autzen Stadium. And they put up on the big screen, on Duck Vision, the Lloyd Carr quote right before kickoff. That's the loudest stadium I've ever heard. And Autzen explodes. Other than 09 Civil War, that's the loudest I've ever heard that stadium. And I've been in nearly all of the big games there. We don't talk about that because, Brendan, a quick Google search, Oregon, Washington State, 2003 will show you Washington State beat the brakes off of Oregon that day. And it was not loud at any point in time after that opening kickoff. But that was one. It was top three, at least top five loudest moments. You don't talk about it because you got beat. So tough beat for the Beavs as they go down 22-20. 8 points. 8 points. The 3 losses for Oregon State all season long, which is got to be incredibly frustrating, especially when you go back to that Arizona game.
Well, each one of them is unique, right? I firmly believe that Washington State was not being prepared.
That's when you're going to kick yourself, right?
You were not ready to go in that game.
Because you're a better team than Washington State.
Right. You weren't
Don't
ready.
know if you could say that about Arizona or Washington. Equal footing, I think, but better team than Washington State.
Right. I mean, I think that they were not prepared for that game. You could tell based on Washington State this year that they had the ability to do that to teams, but other teams were able to relatively handle them. So that's going to be that one. The fake field goal attempt will loom large for Jonathan Smith in the loss to Arizona because that's an Arizona team that is one helpful result away from being in the Pac-12 championship this weekend, despite, like Justin said, being a non-relevant program these last few years.
Yeah, they were 1-11 2 years ago.
And then
I didn't know that. I thought only Colorado was 1-11.
Yeah, it was bad.
I didn't know that.
It was real bad that year. And then finally, this game.
Did the coach come in and just tell everybody that you all stink and you're all going to leave?
No. Jed did it a little bit more organically, Justin.
Got it.
But and then this week comes down to play calling, the weather. I think that Oregon State's crowd. If it wasn't quite as rainy, maybe that crowd's a little bit more electric throughout the game. I mean, it just, the problem is, Justin, if Oregon State hadn't used their mulligans against Arizona and Washington State, you could have lost that game and been
that one in your back pocket.
And been like, whoa, we just go play Oregon and we got a chance. You know what I mean? So I think that.
And by the way,
that's where they'll kick themselves.
Let me just throw this out. And I don't know if I make some people mad, I don't care. For all the people who are sitting in their very cozy, comfortable, warm couch, calling out fans who left that game, I mean, save it, all right? You weren't there because I've sat in a lot of bad weather games. I've sat in a handful of. Now I've also sat in a press box a lot, which is very cozy, and I've also sat in some very cushy seats, which I'm very blessed to be able to watch games from there. But Fred, of the people on the X app who are sitting on their cozy, comfortable couch, sitting there like, oh, the Beaver fans just you told me don't even know if you could describe the rain in terms of how
I don't think you could.
It was.
I really don't think and I don't say that just because you grew up here, you know what it's like to be in a rainstorm too. I truly believe that
we don't have downpours though. That was like a downpour.
I truly believe it. Maybe it's. I'd love to have anyone fire in the comments on Twitter or YouTube that was at the game. I don't think TV did it justice how truly wet it was.
There were a couple of times. I think it was kind of they couldn't fly any of their drones. They said that was a thing, right? Because they have those drones. There were a couple of times That the cable camera, that look, and that one,
The sky cam.
that thing, they would go to that, and it's like, that is somebody's behind that camera just pouring a bottle of water over it because it was
bad.
Because the other cameras, when they're manned, right? You got a little squeegee on there, and they could wipe the one cable camera that's not a person, and you can't clean the thing off. And it's like, yeah, that thing is soaking wet. Disgusting. But yeah, I would imagine on beaversedge.com on the message boards, maybe some comfortable fans in their very comfortable couches. Like, oh, how could fans leave? Like,
I think, yeah,
you're on
so
your
they're-
couch. You're on your couch.
I'll speak for the Edgers, Justin. There were quite a few there. I got a chance to meet up with quite a few of them.
The Edgers? Is that?
Oh,
I
yeah.
like it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't think there were too many that were I knew people that came from Hawaii to that game. I knew people that came from Florida to go to that game. I don't think there are too many Beaver fans of means that could afford those tickets, Justin, that weren't there on Saturday.
It's a little tough.
They
yeah.
left it all out for sure.
All right, so we have clarity going into the final week of the season. Still a lot to play for, and Washington State made an interesting decision. Will Oregon and Oregon State follow? Let's get into the big three.